Okay, so let's go ahead and switch over to Deadpool for today's video because, he's technically part of the whole X-Men universe. But with that being said, when it comes to Deadpool, we're kind of picking up where our last video left off at. As y'all know, when it came to Deadpool, he had a run-in with Typhoid Mary. And when it came to Typhoid Mary, she really did challenge Deadpool to kind of think like, do you really believe that you have the ability to become a hero? Because around this time in Marvel Comics for Deadpool, he was really trying to be a hero. And that was a huge change for the character, especially what we saw in the early 1990s and now being the late 1990s. He's trying to be a hero because he's now dating Siren of the X-Force team. And so when the Typhoid Mary, she pushed him to the point where he really had to question, does he have the ability to be a hero? And so as we get into the opening pages of this storyline, when it comes to Al, the blind lady who stays with Deadpool, she's having a hard time finding things around the house. And the reason why, because Deadpool had moved things around. And when you have her realize there's something wrong with Deadpool, and she does question him like, hey, listen, are you okay? The reason why you're acting weird is it because of Typhoid Mary? He tells her, if you ever mention her name again, it will end badly for you. And so, yes, it has the idea of what Typhoid Mary did to Deadpool in our last video. Now, I kind of want to go ahead and shift over to Hell House. Now, remember, Hell House is where Deadpool goes to get all his different types of assignments. With him being a contract killer, even though technically right now he's trying to be a hero, he still goes to Hell House to get different kinds of jobs. Now, in our last video, there was this other character known as T-Ray. When it came to T-Ray, he tried to make a statement that Deadpool is not the main man of Hell House, that T-Ray is. For some reason, T-Ray has some kind of hatred for Deadpool, and we don't know why technically just yet. But for him, he's trying his best to remove Deadpool off the face of the earth. But of course, right now, he hasn't done that yet. But for Deadpool, he hates the idea that people were actually beginning to believe that, yeah, T-Ray is in charge of Hell House now. He's the main man. And so you have Deadpool just go out of his way and beat down on the different people to remind them who's the main person in charge of the place. Now, technically, the person in charge of Hell House is Patch. He's the guy who gives out different jobs. And so for Patch, he wants to give Deadpool a new assignment, but for Deadpool, again, he's trying to be that hero. He's trying to be that better person. And so you have Patch like, listen, I don't have any files here that's up to date with jobs that you are technically asking for. So give me a minute here to kind of figure out what job I have that fits what you want currently at the moment. But then you have Deadpool be confronted by this mysterious man. Now, this mysterious man basically offers Deadpool, hey, listen, I got a mission for you. Your mission is to save the princess of my country. Now, unfortunately, I cannot pay you, but the princess can cover the cost. Are you down? And for Deadpool, just hearing the idea of him having a chance to be a hero and not trying to sit down, make sure that everything he just heard is technically okay and he should follow up on it. You have Deadpool just go ahead and accept the job just like that. And so he does leave with this mysterious guy to supposedly save a kidnapped princess. Now, I kind of want to go ahead and switch over to Weasel, because when it comes to Weasel, he had found a way to teleport into Deadpool's house. And this was kind of done in an earlier storyline where he was trying his best to warn Deadpool about T-Ray. And so he was able to locate Deadpool's house and teleport over to Deadpool's place. And he was then confronted by Blind Owl. Now, Blind Owl technically did warn Weasel hey, do not come back here. But for Weasel, he still comes back over the home of Deadpool while Deadpool is away. Now, you also have Blind Owl kind of inform Weasel there's something going on with Deadpool. And the reason why she is saying that because, well, he keeps going to one particular area of the house called the box. Now, when it comes to Deadpool, well, Deadpool's now learning the guy he met earlier was not really someone trying to save their lost kidnapped princess. Instead, who he met now is a guy known as Death Trap. Now, for Death Trap, what he wants to do is test out new equipment on Deadpool. Here's the reason why. Because while at Hell House, he saw Deadpool win a fight. He's kind of like, the way Deadpool won that fight is very intriguing, and I'm kind of wondering how all my new equipment would work on somebody like Deadpool. So his main goal was to just kill off Deadpool. He does not have any hatred towards Deadpool at all. It's just his name is Death Trap, and he wants to test out his new traps on Deadpool. And that's technically it. And so you have Deadpool being able to break free from the chains and try his best to fight against Death Trap. Now, Death Trap kind of made sure that even though Deadpool would break free, he would have different ways to knock out Deadpool, which he actually does. And so once you have Deadpool get knocked out by Death Trap, now, once you do have Deadpool wake up after being knocked out by Death Trap, he realized that there was a note left behind by Death Trap. And so for Deadpool, he's kind of wondering what in the world is going on here. Because you have Death Trap say, like, this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship. And that's the end for issue number 9. But let's go ahead and dive into the next issue where you have Deadpool run into the Great Lakes Avengers. Now, as we do shift over to the next chapter, we really kind of shift our focus over to Blind Owl. And let me explain, because for Blind Owl, as we all know, she is a prisoner of Deadpool. Now, we have no idea why in the world Deadpool is keeping her as a prisoner, but she is one. But when it comes to Blind Owl, she still somewhat cares for Deadpool, but at the same time, she's beginning to kind of worry for him, but not in a negative way. Really more of like, can he actually change into a better person that he's trying to become? Because for Deadpool, he's currently dating Siren from X-Force. And so with the idea of her being around, Deadpool is really trying his best to be a better person. And so for Blind Owl, it kind of scares her a tad bit. She kind of feels like she's worried about what could possibly happen to her down the road, or what could possibly happen to Deadpool if things don't go well. Now, when it comes to Deadpool, he does stop by the school of Charles Xavier. Now, technically, we have not covered the storyline yet about what happened at the school of Charles Xavier, because it does take place over in X-Men issue number 70. But don't worry, we're going to cover that very soon. But for Deadpool, he kind of realized that, well, the place does seem a tad bit wrecked. But anyways, you do have Deadpool head back home. But now, once you have Deadpool get back home, he really does express that there's something going on with him, that he's very upset. Now, we have no idea why he's upset, but we get the idea that he is kind of upset about something. But you did have Deadpool say, you know what? Let's go on a field trip. Now, for Blind Owl, she has to spin this wheel. Whatever it lands on is what they're going to do. Here's the catch though, because there is a small section there where it's all like, if it does land on that, she finally gains her freedom. Now it does land on it, but you have Deadpool change it because Blind Owl is, well, blind. And so for Deadpool, he's all like, oh, it landed on the aquarium. So guess where we're going to next? Now the last time they went there, she almost got killed. Because for Deadpool, he's always playing some deadly pranks on her. But either way, they're heading over there. Now, earlier, I had mentioned the fact that, well, there is the Great Lake Avengers in this chapter, and there are the Great Lake Avengers in this chapter, but when it comes to this team, they're also reminding us that this does take place shortly after the idea of Onslaught. So, of course, the Avengers, the Fantastic Four, they are no longer around. So the Great Lake Avengers, they feel like this is their best chance to show the world what they got. And so they do plan on making a move, but first, they're also going on a field trip as well over to the aquarium, the same place where Deadpool and Blind Owl are currently going to as well. And really, as we do shift over to Deadpool and also Blind Owl, you have Deadpool ask Blind Owl a very important question, like, Are you happy? Now, for Deadpool, he kind of knows that besides the fact that, like, she is a prisoner, again, the question is, though, is she happy? And for Deadpool, he kind of tells Blind Owl that he's never happy. He always feels like life just stinks completely around him. He also kind of feels like that he is completely losing it. But for Blind Owl, she says, no, stop. It does seem like lately you have been out of sync, and she's kind of wondering in the possibility of the reason why he is out of sync. Could it be because he's now dating Siren? Now, while you do have the two characters talking about the idea of Deadpool's life, you didn't have Deadpool offer the idea of being free. Like, hey, I'm going to give you the chance to run away, to finally gain the one thing you have been wanting, the idea of being free from me as my prisoner. Now, for a brief moment, we do shift over to, well, Typhoid Mary. Now, remember, when it came to Typhoid Mary's storyline in Deadpool, Typhoid was brought over to the Hell House as well by Deadpool as a way to kind of work off her debt she owes to Deadpool. And so for Typhoid Mary, she's kind of waiting there for Deadpool to come back, but she does run into a character known as Zoe. Now, I'm not going to spend time in this video trying to explain who she is because technically we won't see her for the rest of this video, but she will play very important roles down the road. But getting back over to Deadpool and Blind Owl, Deadpool is being very serious about the idea of giving Blind Owl the chance to finally be free. Now, for Blind Owl, she kind of feels like Deadpool is just pulling her chain here. Like, there's no way he would actually offer her the chance to be free. But he says, listen, I'll give you a head start. Like, go ahead, walk away or run away, and I will count to like a ridiculous high number. If you are able to stay away from me, then there you go. You had officially gained your freedom. If I find you, though, well, of course, you're my prisoner again. Now, at first, for Blind Owl, she does not really believe that Deadpool would technically give her the chance to be free. But at the same time, she's kind of like, hey, you know what? I should just go ahead and try and see because she's kind of worried that with what's going on with Deadpool, he might become a worse person than he already is at the moment and possibly do some, well, horrible things to her as well. Now, she still has her dog Deuce. Here's the problem, though. Deuce runs away, and so now Blind Owl is technically lost in the middle of the park. Now, let's go ahead and shift our focus over to the the Great Lake Avengers to kind of get the idea of like what is their actual origin. Now, the Great Lake Avengers, they had first appeared back in West Coast Avengers issue number 46 in 1989, I want to say. Now, when it comes to the Great Lake Avengers, they're being led by a character known as Mr. Immortal. Now, when it comes to Mr. Immortal, once he had discovered that he was, well, immortal, he went out of his way to put an ad out there to call upon different men and women to help him to fight against crime. And of course, that formed the Great Lake Avengers. Now, here's the thing though, because while they were out there being heroes, they caught the eye of Hawkeye and Mockingbird. And so you had those two characters realize that the Great Lake Avengers are really just a group of characters who are completely odd. But for Hawkeye and Mockingbird, they still wanted to train these young heroes. Unfortunately, they had left Hawkeye and Mockingbird behind and moved to a different location to kind of work out of. So they kind of been like this C-list or D-list Avengers team. But around this time in Marvel Comics, they're really trying their best to change their team name into the Lightning Rods. Here's the reason why, because again, with this taking place after Onslaught, the Avengers and also the Fantastic Four are no longer around. So other heroes had to step up, and that led into the Thunderbolts. And so for the Great Lake Avengers, what they're trying to do is kind of piggyback off the name of the Thunderbolts and call themselves the Lightning Rods to kind of bring the public to notice them more, but to also gain the love of the people across the country as well. And so you have the Lightning Rods now going after Deadpool. And the reason why, because Blind Owl time is up and Deadpool pulls out guns and begins to shoot up the place. But you didn't have Deadpool be confronted by the Great Lake Avengers. Now, for the Great Lake Avengers, they believe that Deadpool is a dangerous guy that has to be taken down. And technically, they're not wrong here. He has to be taken down. And so we see Deadpool fight against the Great Lake Avengers. But while doing that, he does find Blind Owl. Now, to Deadpool, he believes that Blind Owl was trying her best to escape, but in reality, for Blind Owl, once the dog, left her behind, she just gave up because she's blind. She really can't find her way out of this area. And so once you have Deadpool being able to regroup with her, his main goal now is to teleport back to his home. The problem is that once you have Deadpool begin the process of teleporting back to his home, there's another character known as Doorman who's part of the Great Lake Avengers. And for Doorman, he believes that Deadpool now has a hostage. That hostage will be Blind Owl. Now, technically, he's still not wrong, but in this case, he is wrong. But either way, for Doorman, what he wants to do is teleport Blind Owl away from Deadpool. The problem is that once you have Deadpool and Doorman both use their abilities to teleport, there's this huge feedback. And then Deadpool and Blind Owl have gone completely missing. Now, once you have Weasel arrive at the scene, because once the dog left Blind Owl behind, you have the dog go back home and, of course, find Weasel. And so you have Weasel think that there's something going on with Blind Owl. And so he follows the dog back over to where Blind Owl was at. Except when he arrives, he realized Deadpool and Blind Owl are completely gone. And to him, they have now been lost in time somewhere. Now, before we dive into Deadpool issue number 11, there is something I do want to say, guys. It's the idea that you have Deadpool go back in time, right? And when he does go back in time, he ends up where Amazing Spider-Man issue number 46 happened. Yes, you heard that right. It's Deadpool going back in time and getting involved in an old Spider-Man story that involves Kraven, Norman Osborn, Harry Osborn, and the rest of the supporting cast of Peter Parker's life in that certain point in time in Marvel Comics. Now, it's not really Deadpool kind of retconning the events or kind of changing things up, really. It's more of like he goes back in time, but this does take place on a different Earth, it seems like. It's kind of confusing, right? But anyways, as we get into the opening pages of issue number 11, we pick up with the Watcher. As we all know, the Watcher goal is to watch over the main Marvel universe, but especially when it comes to the Earth, right? And so when it comes to the Watcher, he begins to freak out because he realized that something big is about to happen. And so he tries his best to use all the different technology he has with him to kind of pinpoint what's about to happen that's now pulling his attention. And so once he's able to kind of pinpoint what could possibly happen, he realized it's Aunt May. But he also realized it's somebody who should not be here in this point in time, but also that person is going to ruin this great day for Aunt May. And of course, that would be Deadpool and Blind Owl. Now, when they do arrive, they kind of crash on top of Aunt May and of course, knocking her out. Now, once they do that, they're kind of wondering where in the world are they? Now, for Deadpool, Blind Owl, they don't know at first that technically they're in the past, but you do have Deadpool and Blind Owl go ahead and take Aunt May into her home. Now, they do realize that right now they're currently in New York. And so for Deadpool, his main goal is to teleport over to Hell House, get a ride, drive all the way back over to, I guess, New York to get Blind Owl, and then drive all the way back over to San Francisco. Either way, you have Deadpool leave Blind Owl to watch over Aunt May. But here's the catch. Because once you have Deadpool go back over to where he believes Hell House should be at, well, Hell House is not even there at all. In matter of fact, this is the Sister Margaret's home for wayward girls. So of course, Hell House has not been invented yet because, well, they went back in time. And for Deadpool, he hasn't really figured out yet that he's not in the right point of time, but he does kind of get attacked by some girls and one of the sisters of the place. But you do have Deadpool leave. But back in the present day, you have Weasel and also the Great Lake Avengers trying their best to figure out, like, where could Deadpool and Blind Owl be at? Because for Weasel, he knows they went back in time, but of course, that could be any time. It could be the 60s, the 70s, the 80s. Now we know it's going to be the 60s, but for them, they have no idea. Now, for Flatman here, he was kind of able to realize where they could possibly be at. And the reason why, because Homeboy studied fashion in college. And so because of that, he saw a shoe fall out of Doorman and kind of realized what year that shoe had to come from. And so with them being able to kind of use that clue right there, they now kind of got an idea of where Deadpool could possibly be at. And now their goal is to figure out how to bring Deadpool and Blind Owl back into the present day. Now, once you do have Deadpool being able to regroup with Blind Owl, you have Blind Owl basically break it down to Deadpool like, hey, we are in the past right now. Now, for Blind Owl, she understands how time works. Like, with them being in the past, they really can't do anything to change the past that could possibly wreck the future. And so for Blind Owl, she's trying her best to kind of give Deadpool an idea of, hey, we gotta be very careful. The problem is that Deadpool is a jokester. Deadpool's all like, oh, you know what? That means I can now fix all different type sporting events to kind of help me, win some big money. Like to Deadpool, this is a big joke. But here comes the next problem. And that would be Anna Watson. As we all know, Anna Watson is the aunt to Mary Jane Watson. Here's the problem though, because for Anna, she wants to come by and check up on Aunt May. The problem is Aunt May is knocked out right there on the couch thanks to Deadpool and Blind Owl. And so you have Blind Owl and Deadpool begin to freak out. Their main goal now is to figure out what to do. And Deadpool has a game plan. It's a good game plan, just, kind of a little wild, because you have Deadpool force Blind Owl to now pretend to be Aunt May. Yeah, you heard that right. And then you have Deadpool use his image inducer as a way to look like Peter Parker. Now, when it comes to Deadpool and also Blind Owl, they gotta play the roles. The problem is that neither characters know how Aunt May nor Peter Parker act like. So for Anna, she's kind of wondering what is going on here, because they are acting completely weird, completely different. Now, for Blind Owl, you have Deadpool say, I need you to stay with her. And here's the reason why. Because in the present day, you have the heroes or characters in the present day being able to send a note back in time to tell Deadpool what he has to do to kind of get him back home. And so what you have the note tell Deadpool is that he has to activate his belt at midnight at the same exact time as Doorman activates his powers. Once that happens, it should stabilize Doorman's powers, allowing Deadpool and Blind Owl to go back over to the present day. Here comes the next problem. Deadpool's belt that allows him to teleport is broken. And so for Deadpool, he's kind of wondering who in the world in the past could technically fix it. Now, at first, I thought, oh my God, they're going to use Peter Parker, right? No. Technically, yes, but no. Because Peter Parker knows someone that Deadpool knows. You see, in the past, Peter Parker was not really close to Weasel, but he knew Weasel. And so for Deadpool, that works out, because when he looks at the pictures of Peter Parker, he saw in one picture that Peter Parker was not close, but Peter Parker knew Weasel in the past. And so for Deadpool, that's great, because Weasel made a device in the present day. He should be able to fix the device, even though now it's in the past. And so you have Deadpool say, let's go find Weasel. But Deadpool also realized that, okay, he has to keep Peter Parker busy somehow. And the reason why, because if Peter Parker walks around and sees himself, it's going to freak him out. And so for Deadpool, he knows what he has to do. Aunt May is already knocked out. So let's go ahead and move on over to Peter Parker. And he realized that Peter Parker is a photographer. And so once you have Deadpool leave the home of the Parkers to begin his plan to keep Peter busy, he walks by Kraven. Because in issue number 47 of Amazing Spider-Man, it was a Kraven storyline. It was Kraven trying to hunt down, Norman Osborn. But before we kind of dive into that right there, you do have Peter Parker being able to trick Peter Parker, the real Peter Parker, to believe in the idea that there's something big going to happen very soon at a different location. And then going to need Spider-Man there as well. Now for Deadpool, he wasn't really able to put two to two together that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, but he does know that Peter Parker is a photographer who wants to take pictures of Spider-Man. And so it does kind of work out for Deadpool here because Peter, getting the word about something happening down the road or somewhere else in the city that might need the help of Spider-Man will keep Peter busy long enough to allow Deadpool the chance to get close to Weasel and get the teleporter fixed. Except once he does find Weasel, Weasel is not really a person who's close to Peter. He knows Peter Parker, but they're not really close at all. And so while you do have Deadpool pretending to be Peter and trying to be friendly, well, for Weasel, he does not like Peter Parker at all, which of course makes things even harder for Deadpool to get the teleporter fixed. Now, here's the thing, because while you do have the two characters talking to one another, well, you didn't have Harry Osborn appear. Now, for Harry Osborn, as we all know, he's Peter's best friend. He's all like, hey, Peter, let's go ahead and head back over to the apartment. Now, the way Harry is talking is so 1960s, right? And so for Deadpool, he's freaking out like, what in the world is this man saying? But the problem is that for Deadpool, he remembers that Blind Owl said you can't do anything that could possibly change the future, which also means you can't kill Harry Osborn, like at all. And so for Deadpool, unfortunately, he has to continue the idea of playing as Peter Parker long enough to allow him the chance to get close to Weasel, get on the good side of Weasel so he can fix the teleporter. Now, let's not forget that for Blind Owl, she's also pretending to be, well, Aunt May. And so you do have Anna Watson take Blind Owl over to their place, where of course they run into Mary Jane. Now, while being there with Mary Jane, she does learn about the idea of the party over at Gwen Stacy's place. And of course, it's now Blind Owl saying, okay, cool, got a game plan. Because once you do have Deadpool and Blind Owl being able to communicate on the phone with one another, it's Blind Owl saying, take your friend Weasel to that party, get him, liquored up, and hopefully he'll have a change of heart when it comes to fixing the teleporter to get us back home. So now Deadpool, Blind Owl, they kind of got a game plan here. But you didn't have Deadpool meet Norman Osborn. Now, I find this hilarious because growing up, I always found Harry and Norman's hairstyle very weird, right? I feel like most people do. And so for Deadpool, he's kind of like, what is up with the hairstyle on these guys' head? Like, what is this? But it's also Deadpool, kind of learning a tad bit more about the supporting characters in Peter's life. But also, once you do have Harry and Deadpool, being able to regroup with Weasel, you also didn't have Gwen Stacy kind of remind Harry about the idea of the party. And of course, you have Harry say we'll be there. That means him and also Peter, but of course right now Deadpool, but also now Weasel is invited. We also learn here that Weasel is madly in love with Gwen Stacy. So once he does get that invite, he begins to act completely different. And for Deadpool, he kind of realized that he's no longer truly able to talk to Weasel because Weasel right now wants to make sure he looks perfect for Gwen Stacy and her party. And so once you do have Deadpool and Peter Parker supporting cast arrive at the party, you didn't have everyone just vibing and having a good old time. Here's the catch though, because while everyone is vibing, having a good old time and partying, you also have Weasel, being able to get close to Gwen Stacy. You're like, okay, Weasel, get your moves on, dude. But then while they're dancing and having a good old time, and you even have Deadpool say like, I'm going to try my best to get Gwen Stacy with Weasel. Now, as we all know, if Deadpool does that, it could technically alter the timeline because as we all know, Gwen is supposed to date Peter Parker and then be killed off by the Green Goblin. Anyways, though, while everyone vibing, having a good old time, Kraven appears. Because around this time in Marvel Comics, in Amazing Spider-Man number 47, Kraven was looking for Norman Osborn. And so, of course, he went to the party and found, Harry Osborn. And so he's trying to use Harry as a way to get to Norman. Now, for Deadpool there, you do have Deadpool go ahead and just change into his Deadpool outfit to allow him the chance to take down Kraven, which of course he basically does almost, until you have Kraven go out of his way to get Norman Osborn, who appears at the scene. And so once you have Kraven being able to grab Norman, well, you didn't have Norman say like, I don't know who you are, because around this time in Marvel Comics, Norman did not know that he was the Green Goblin. It was kind of like the Hulk, two different personas. And so for Kraven, he's kind of like, oh, wait, you're serious. You had no idea that you're the Green Goblin. That's wild. That's crazy. And so when it comes to Kraven, while trying to hold on to Norman, you didn't have Deadpool being able to defeat Kraven and also save Norman Osborn. Now, for Norman, he does ask Deadpool, like, hey, how can I repay you? And you have Deadpool say, like, hey, listen, I know somebody who's applying for a certain position in your company. Now, he does give Weasel's name. And for Norman, he says, oh, yeah, he one of the top 2 candidates for that position. But you did have Deadpool say, well, let me tell you a small habit of his. But once you do have everyone calm down at the party, you did have the real Peter Parker arrive. Now, once the real Peter Parker arrives, you have everyone kind of talking to him like he's been there the entire time. And technically he was, but not really, because it was Deadpool pretending to be him. And so for Peter, he's very confused about what in the world is going on. But on top of that, you have Norman tell us, really the readers, but also telling like Weasel why he can't have the position. And the reason why, because Deadpool told Norman that Weasel has an addiction. And so just like that, for Weasel, he will no longer be considered for the job position that Norman was offering to him and the other candidate. And so now for Weasel, he kind of feels like his world has just been shattered. But on top of that, Gwen is no longer focusing on him, it's now focusing on everyone else, including Peter Parker. And so you have Weasel just walk away. Now, when he does, he walks into Deadpool, who's still pretending to be Peter Parker. And you have Deadpool offer Weasel alcohol. Now, the question is this the exact moment that kind of leads into Weasel becoming an alcoholic? We don't know technically, but you do have Deadpool offer Weasel alcohol, got him drunk, and of course, basically had Weasel fix the device to allow our heroes a chance to get back home. Now, once you do have Deadpool meet back up with Blind Al and replace Blind Al with Aunt May when it comes to, hanging out with Anna Watson, you have Blind Al ask Deadpool like, hey, Deadpool, you didn't do anything that could possibly affect the future of Weasel, right? And the thing is, Deadpool technically did, because he told Norman like, hey, he's an addict, and then gave the guy alcohol for the first time that could possibly lead into Weasel becoming an alcoholic. But either way, with the teleporter now being fixed, our heroes are now able to go back home, which they do. And you have the book end on the note where you have the Watcher being happy that everything had gone back to normal. So we're kind of left to believe that, yes, when it comes to Deadpool, telling Norman Osborn about Weasel being an addict, there could be a chance that that was supposed to happen because, well, the time stream did not get messed up, it seems like. But either way, this is where we are going to end today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, see y'all next time. Later.